Legends, champions, icons, each one conquered Formula One, and everyone lost it. This isn't about laps or trophies, it's about what happens when glory turns, and the fall becomes the story. Lewis Hamilton's story begins like a prophecy, a young racer from Stevenage, paired with a world champion in his very first season, and nearly beating him. In 2008, he became the youngest champion in F1 history, carving a path written in audacity and instinct. But his true reign began with Mercedes. When others saw a midfield team, Hamilton saw a future. From 2014 to 2020, he dominated the hybrid era. 6 more titles, countless records, and a level of control the sport had rarely seen. Off the track, he redefined what a driver could be. An activist, a global icon, a face beyond the helmet. Yet every empire meets resistance. In 2021, Abu Dhabi changed everything. One controversial call, a single lap, turned certainty into chaos. The crown slipped, and for the first time he looked mortal. The years that followed brought no victories, only questions. Was the machine failing him, or was time finally catching up? Today, Hamilton still races not as the untouchable champion, but as the man chasing number 8. Proof that even modern greatness cannot escape the oldest story in Formula One. The rise, the reign, and the reckoning. Before Hamilton redefined greatness, Michael Schumacher invented it. His rise was as calculated as it was ruthless. From a one-race debut with Jordan in 1991 to back-to-back titles with Benetton, Schumacher raced with precision, bordering on obsession. When he joined Ferrari in 1996, many thought he'd lost his mind. The team was broken, the glory days gone. But Schumacher didn't just want to win, he wanted to rebuild. By 2000, the transformation was complete. From 2000 to 2004, he won 5 consecutive world championships, crushing records and competition alike. For a time, he was more machine than man. Then the empire peaked. His first retirement in 2006 wasn't defeat, it was exhaustion. But legends rarely stay gone. When Schumacher returned with Mercedes, the world waited for the magic. It didn't come. 3 seasons, 1 podium, and a reminder that time is undefeated. In 2013, a skiing accident silenced him entirely. Since then, only whispers and hope. Schumacher's story isn't just about dominance. It's about how every era in Formula One ends, not with a crash, but with quiet. For a moment, Sebastian Vettel looked unstoppable. At 23, he became the youngest world champion in history, and then refused to stop winning. From 2010 to 2013, Red Bull and Vettel formed a dynasty. 4 consecutive titles, record poles, and race wins that felt inevitable. Vettel wasn't flamboyant, he was clinical, a technician disguised as a driver. Every lap measured, every strategy executed to perfection. But Formula One never stays still. In 2014, new regulations cracked Red Bull's perfection, and with it, Vettel's reign. Beaten by a younger teammate, Daniel Ricciardo, the man who ruled races found himself fighting physics and progress. He moved to Ferrari, chasing Schumacher's ghost and the dream of reviving Italy's Red Empire. There were flashes of magic, 2017, 2018, but every near miss ended the same way, small mistakes, big consequences. By 2020, Ferrari moved on. Vettel found a quiet home at Aston Martin, respected but no longer feared. His fall wasn't violent, it was gradual. The slow fade of a man who once mastered everything except time. Vettel's legacy remains clear. 4 titles, relentless method, and a reminder that perfection only lasts until the rules change. Alain Prost wasn't the fastest driver in Formula One. He was the smartest. Measured, meticulous, relentless with detail. The professor didn't chase chaos. He controlled it. His rise through Renault and McLaren fused intellect with instinct. By 1985, he was world champion. The late 80s brought Formula One's greatest duel, Prost versus Senna, technique versus instinct, control versus faith. Their clashes defined the era and changed how the world saw racing. Prost would claim 4 world titles, each one not through aggression, but through reading the race better than anyone else. Yet strategy has limits when politics take over. After a bitter stint with Ferrari in 1991, where public criticism led to exile, Prost stepped away. He returned with Williams in 1993, won another title, and then, in true Prost fashion, stopped. Not from defeat, but completion. His fall was self-designed, deliberate. In a sport addicted to spectacle, Alain Prost's greatest victory was knowing precisely when to stop chasing one. Fernando Alonso rose like he'd been waiting his whole life to dethrone someone. At 24, he broke Schumacher's empire, taking back-to-back titles with Renault in 2005 and 2006. Calm under pressure, surgical in precision. Alonso turned consistency into weaponry, but what followed wasn't decline, it was dislocation. The McLaren partnership in 2007 was supposed to cement his dominance. Instead, it imploded. Politics, pride, and a rookie named Hamilton. Alonso fled back to Renault, then on to Ferrari, chasing redemption that came close, but never quite arrived. 2010 and 2012 were seasons of heartbreak, measured in inches. Second place isn't failure. But to Alonso, it might as well have been. A second stint at McLaren promised rebirth. Instead, it delivered frustration. He outdrove his cars, outthought his teams, and outlasted nearly all his rivals, yet remained the sport's most restless soul. Even now, in his 40s, he still races with the defiance of a man unfinished. Alonso's rise was rapid, his fall scattered. The only constant was speed, and the feeling that somehow history still owes him one more win. Niki Lauda was never supposed to be a Formula One legend. He wasn't a prodigy or a showman. He was an engineer who happened to drive. Every decision was data, every risk calculated. Where others chased glory, Lauda chased margins. Fractions of efficiency, percentages of perfection. In the early 1970s, he bought his way into Formula One with borrowed money and unrelenting certainty. By the time Ferrari signed him in 1974, his reputation was already clear. Fast, fearless, and brutally honest. Within a year, he turned Ferrari's chaos into order. 1975, world champion, discipline defeating instinct. He spoke softly, drove cleanly, and believed emotion was a distraction. Then came 1976, the year that turned Niki Lauda from driver into myth. At the Nürburgring, on August 1st, his car burst into flames. The crash lasted seconds. The scars lasted a lifetime. Flames seared his face, shattered his lungs, melted the helmet meant to protect him. He was read his last rites in hospital, and 6 weeks later, he was back in the car. Blood still fresh on his bandages, fear visible in his eyes, voice hoarse from injury. Yet he returned. Finished fourth at Monza. His race engineer later said it was the bravest drive he'd ever witnessed. Lauda would lose the 1976 title to James Hunt by 1 point. Most called it tragic. Lauda saw it as logical. "I had the choice to live or die," he once said. "I chose to live." He won the championship again in 1977, then, typically, walked away. Retired, built airlines, argued with accountants, missed everything about racing, except the precision. Returned in 1982 with McLaren, purely to prove he could do it again, and did, winning his third world title in 1984. Formula One was never his life. It was merely the system that best suited his personality. After retiring for good, Lauda became mentor, critic, and architect. He ran his own airline, advised manufacturers, and later joined Mercedes as the steady hand behind another empire, the one that would crown Hamilton. Decades after Nürburgring, his scarred face remained a symbol, not of pain, but of pragmatism. A man who survived the impossible, then quietly went back to work. Niki Lauda passed away in 2019. The tributes called him heroic, courageous, legendary. He would have hated all of it. For him, it was never about heroism. It was about doing the job, the right way, or not at all. Niki Lauda's rise was surgical. His fall, literal. His return, historic. And through it all, he taught the sport that courage isn't born from adrenaline. It's engineered through logic. In a world driven by emotion, he proved that reason could be just as fearless. Kimi Räikkönen didn't follow Formula One. He infiltrated it. No politics, no pretense. Just speed. Signed to Sauber in 2001 with barely any experience, he was already in a McLaren within a year. The paddock called him the Iceman for his silence and his refusal to play the PR game. His talent spoke louder. Calm, raw, effortlessly fast. In 2007, he did what two champions couldn't. Brought Ferrari another title, 1 point margin, minimal reaction, maximum legend. After that, the fire cooled. He left F1 for rallying, returned with Lotus, and delivered underdogs their day in the sun. The later Ferrari years blurred into consistency more than glory, and yet the myths only grew stronger. By the time he joined Alfa Romeo, Kimi had become exactly what fans worshipped: unfiltered, uninterested, entirely himself. The Iceman didn't rise or fall. He drifted along his own line and never cared who followed. Some drivers find greatness. Ayrton Senna became it. From the moment he stepped into a Formula One car, Senna drove as if he was chasing something invisible. Not victory, but destiny. His rise began with Toleman in 1984. In the rain at Monaco that year, he turned a midfield car into a miracle, climbing from 13th to nearly first before the race was stopped. It was the arrival of something different. A driver who didn't just master control in chaos, he created it. At Lotus, Senna refined speed into art. Pole positions came like clockwork. Wet tracks became his canvas. He spoke often about the divine, about finding another level beyond human thought when the car and driver became one. Then came McLaren, and with it, the rival who shaped him, Alain Prost. Their partnership began as tension and became philosophy. Prost, the professor, defined by intellect. Senna, the believer, defined by conviction. Together they turned Formula One from competition into theatre. Spectacular, bitter, beautiful. Between 1988 and 1993, Senna captured 3 world titles, each seemingly won on faith and fury. He could destroy a field by seconds per lap, or lose everything to a fraction of pride. To fans, that fragility made him human. To rivals, it made him terrifying. Off the track, Senna became something much larger than statistics. Brazil saw him as hope incarnate, a symbol of resilience for a country in hardship. Every win carried a nation with it. Every loss, collective heartbreak. But time, technology, and fate are cruel partners. By 1994, McLaren had declined, and Senna accepted a new challenge. Williams, the most advanced car on the grid. It was supposed to be the perfect union of talent and engineering. Instead, it began with technical struggles, instability, and frustration. And then came Imola. The weekend was cursed from the start. Accidents, a fatal crash during qualifying, unease in the paddock. Senna, ever perceptive, felt it. Yet he raced for duty, for pride, perhaps for closure. On May 1st, 1994, lap 7 of the San Marino Grand Prix, turn Tamburello. A silent moment, a single impact. The world stopped. The man who made time seem irrelevant. Defeated by it in an instant. He was 34. The aftermath tore through the sport. Safety standards changed forever. Cockpits grew stronger. Circuits re-engineered. Every driver who crossed the line in later years did so under the reforms his loss demanded. Yet Senna's legacy isn't tragedy. It's transcendence. To this day, he remains the measuring stick for purity, for bravery, for grace under impossible odds. He turned speed into scripture, precision into prayer. Ayrton Senna's rise wasn't just victory, it was revelation. His fall wasn't mere death, it was transformation. Because the true mark of immortality isn't to live forever, it's to be remembered every time an engine starts and someone whispers his name. For every lap ever turned, one truth remains. In Formula One, greatness is never permanent, only remembered. Because in this sport, the rise may make a legend, but the fall makes a story. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and check out the next video from More Than Speed.